What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for Arrow Season 8, Episode 1, the 10th to last episode of the show, and the premiere episode of the final season. In this episode, the titled Starling City, Oliver Queen goes to Earth 2, which is something that was never confirmed until the episode came out. However, literally every single time I talked about this episode, I just assumed that he went to Earth 2, and that ended up being the case. But in this video, I'll review this premiere, which I thought was a very good episode, minus one part of it, one storyline that I really didn't think was good, and that storyline will be detrimental to the quality of the season. But I think other than that one storyline, which obviously I will get to, this episode did so many things well with the homages, the tributes, the action scenes, the emotional scenes, and the twists and turns to make it maybe the best season premiere of the Arrowverse, but definitely up there. So with that in mind, let's begin the review, obviously starting with the Crisis on Infinite Earth stuff, which is practically the entire episode except for the flash forwards. So in the last season, the Monitor shows up at Oliver's house telling him that there is an upcoming crisis and that he will have to help out to stop it. Then in this episode, we don't see any explanation of the Monitor telling him where he needs to go and what he needs to do, or telling him more about the crisis. It starts right on Lian Yu, the sneak peek we saw before the episode, which is maybe the best opening scene in the entirety of any season, as in this scene, Oliver runs through the trees like he did in every other season premiere opening except for season 5, because they saved that for the crossover. But I do like that tradition, as in this episode, the episode starts out with him on Lian Yu running in a very similar fashion to how he did in the pilot. This whole scene is a recreation of the pilot. I think it's probably the exact same footage, except for the ending when Oliver unmasks himself or unhoods himself. He doesn't have long hair, and also that was reshot. But also there's the Deathstroke mask, which was recreated to be the Batman mask, which is such an awesome reference and an awesome thing they put there, as somehow, someway, Batman from Earth 2 made it to Lian Yu and probably fought Robert Queen of Earth 2, a character who doesn't appear nor is mentioned in this episode like as being the Hood, which is probably the most disappointing thing about this. They never got to that aspect of Arrow, the Hood of Earth 2, except for the current Hood. But anyway, that thing with Batman, the recreation of the first scene of the show ever, and how it all plays through the mystery of where Oliver is without telling us where he is specifically, I think that all worked very well, making it one of the best, if not the best, opening scenes in any season. So after being saved, Oliver returns to Starling City and reunites with his mother, or more accurately, his mother reunites with who she thinks is her son, as Oliver did die 12 years ago on Earth 2, and this is the Earth 1 Oliver taking his place just for a mission. Now, I don't really 100% know why the Monitor specifically put Oliver on Lian Yu, and why he had to go through all these steps, and for everyone to think that he is from Earth 2 and the real Oliver Queen from Earth 2, just to get that dwarf star particle. That was never explained, but it did make for a very interesting storyline with a lot of great recreations in terms of the scenes, and also some emotional moments with the people that he's reuniting with. But anyway, he learns that Malcolm Merlin is married to his mother. I like the reaction, and also it's cool to see Merlin again, even though, he is very different from another universe. Then he reunites with Tommy. Again, Tommy, great character to see again. I've said this a lot, but Tommy brings a level of emotion to the show, and considering, although this is an evil version of Tommy, spoiler alert, he still brings a level of emotion to the show that I really, really like. But then Oliver learns that Thea died a couple years ago in the events of what would have been her death in season 1, as she got hooked on vertigo and then got in a car crash, but then later was helped by Oliver, Laurel, and Roy. In this universe, Oliver never came back, so she wasn't helped by anybody. She could have been helped by Robert, but maybe not, as Laurel didn't help her, probably never met Roy, and then she overdosed on vertigo. But I do think Oliver's reaction here to Thea's death, even though this isn't his Thea, and this is Thea from another universe, his reaction is so genuine and emotional, and it is great. So then Oliver goes to Queen Consolidated, and we later learn it was to retrieve what Marnovu asked him to get, which was this dwarf star particle, which I'm guessing he's going to be needing to use to build the machines that maybe bring all of the universes together, and Oliver's getting all of the resources for that. But also, I do think Oliver will be recruiting heroes for the upcoming crisis as well. But while he's trying to get this dwarf star particle, he finds all the scientists shot dead with these black arrows. Then the Earth 2 Hood shows up, which we knew that the Earth 2 hood was Robert Queen, and turns out, like I said, in this episode, Robert Queen's like never mentioned, except for as just being Robert Queen and how he died with Oliver on the Gambit, even though we know that on Earth 2, Robert Queen was the hood. That was confirmed, unless that wasn't 100% confirmed. Maybe it was just speculation on the TV, but the fact that Robert Queen never shows up or is even mentioned as the hood is a little bit disappointing. They could have at least mentioned that he died, but then there's this fight between the Green Arrow and the Hood, which is great. I think the fight scenes in this episode are top notch. Like, very well choreographed, very intense, and after this fight scene, Laurel shows up as the Black Canary, the same Laurel we've seen for the last couple seasons, and then it's slowly revealed who the Hood is. Now, up until this point, I thought it would be Robert Queen, like maybe there would be this big twist that they brought Robert Queen back, which they didn't. It turns out they didn't, but once the Hood from Earth 2 started walking towards Oliver, the same exact walk that Prometheus had, like this very slow, menacing walk that's like instantly recognizable, I was able to tell like seconds before he unmasked himself that it's Adrian Chase. Now, I do think that they used Adrian Chase in a very good way in this episode. However, I'm very disappointed that it doesn't seem like he could ever return, as I think it would have been cool to see the Green Arrow of Earth 2, played by Josh Segarra, and the Adrian Chase of Earth 2, helping out in the upcoming crossover, but that does not seem to be happening at all. But then Oliver goes to Laurel's bunker. It's very purple, and also you see some costumes in the background, specifically Citizen Steel, Vixen, and Ragman. I'm pretty sure those were the costumes that we saw. But in this scene, Black Canary is called Pretty Bird for the first time ever on the show, which that's insane. It really should have happened way earlier on onto the show, and not by Adrian Chase, but by Oliver Queen, but that definitely should have happened. But that was definitely, I guess, a cool reference to the comics. But after this, Oliver goes to Merlin Global because he thinks that the Dark Archer is Malcolm Merlin, to talk to Merlin and to talk to him about him being the Dark Archer, but he's met by Mar-Novu, who tells Oliver to not get involved in Earth's problems. Now, Mar-Novu's appearance here, along with, I didn't even mention this, I forgot to mention this, but his narration in the beginning, and also all of his appearances, whenever he does appear, it just brings this level of epicness and intensity with his voice, his appearance, and also the music in the background, and scenes like this, I absolutely love them, and I think Mar-Novu, again, also obviously with all the crisis setup, but the Monitor I definitely think will elevate this season, as he will be appearing in a lot of the episodes as a recurring character. So then Oliver attacks Malcolm Merlin under the suspicion that he is the Dark Archer. I do think that this wasn't exactly a twist that Malcolm Merlin wasn't the Dark Archer. If they were going for that, then it didn't work, but I don't think they were going for that, so that's fine. I mean, just the fact that if Malcolm Merlin was the Dark Archer would be a huge waste of the multiverse concept, and it was pretty obvious that Tommy Merlin was the Dark Archer, so it wasn't exactly a twist. However, it did bring some very interesting dialogue, interactions, and storylines, as also fight scenes, as in this episode, in this part of the episode, the Dark Archer and the Green Arrow go up against each other for the first time, and this fight scene is very well choreographed, very intense, and overall, really, really good. So the very next day at Queen Mansion, Merlin tells the cops, which turns out to be Dinah Drake, that he was attacked by the Hood. I do like that we saw the Earth 2 versions of Dinah Drake and also Renee Ramirez, as both of those characters, the Earth 1 versions of the characters, had no role in this episode at all, and those were the only two cast members who didn't appear, or at least their main characters didn't appear, I'm pretty sure. So even though they didn't appear, I'm glad they at least use all the actors at their disposal in the present day for their Earth 2 doppelgangers. But Dinah Drake is a cop, Renee Ramirez is directly working for Tommy and Malcolm Merlin. But after this, Diggle turns up, and I did not expect this to be the Earth 1 Diggle. I knew that Diggle would definitely, the Earth 1 Diggle, be a part of Oliver's mission, but in this moment, I really thought this was the genuine John Diggle of Earth 2. So then when it was revealed that it was Earth 1, very, very subtly revealed that it was Earth 1 Diggle, I really liked that twist, and I really liked that moment. So after Oliver and Diggle argue about Diggle helping out, which was a storyline that was fine, I didn't really exactly love it, didn't think it was 100% necessary, but did have its good moments. But then Oliver confronts Tommy and is tranked by Renee. Tommy ties up Oliver in this wet room with water falling down, which is obviously an homage to the season finale of season 1, when Malcolm Merlin did the same to Oliver Queen, a recently unmasked Oliver Queen that Malcolm Merlin, or at least Malcolm Merlin, just learned that he was the Hood. This interaction in season 1 was great, and they replicated it here, where Merlin, or Tommy Merlin this time, reveals his motivation, the fact that Thea was killed because of the Glades, and he wants to destroy the Glades because of it. I do think this was a great scene. However, I do think it also would have been cool for them to mention that Tommy's mother died as well because of the Glades, because Malcolm, Merlin, and Moira are married in this universe, probably because Malcolm's original wife, Rebecca, died, most likely was murdered by the Glades, or somebody in the Glades, I mean. So it would have been even better if Tommy was, like, getting revenge on the Glades for two different instances. One, his mother was murdered, and also just the culture in the Glades led to his sister being overdosed or overdosing on vertigo. So anyway, this was still a very good scene, which leads to Oliver escaping and heading back to the bunker. In this scene, we got one of the best moments in the episode, which is definitely saying a lot, as this episode is definitely more of an homage to Season 1 than anything, really more of an homage to Episode 1 of Season 1, as well as the finale of Season 1 than anything. However, considering Adrian Chase's role, it definitely has some homages to Season 5, especially in this scene. After Oliver escapes from Merlin's clutches, he comes to the bunker, and he tries to figure out where Merlin put the earthquake device, coming up with the idea where Adrian and Laurel and basically everyone else, except for, I guess, Diggle, had no idea about any of this, but he just says everything, like he knows about the earthquake machine, the undertaking, and exactly where it would be, which is where Thea died. And then Adrian asks if he's like a wizard or something, and he responds, maybe I'm just 10 steps ahead, which, if you don't know, is a callback to what Adrian said in Season 5.
I'm 10 steps ahead of you, and you haven't even figured out what game we're playing yet.
One of the best lines on the show ever, and I thought that callback was awesome, a great homage and tribute or callback to Season 5, and it really feels like Oliver's been saving that up. If, like, he ever met Adrian again, or obviously an alternate version of Adrian, he would have an interaction where he would say something like that, so that was definitely a very good moment. So then Team Arrow head out to stop Merlin. In this suit-up scene, then also the fight scene, we have Green Arrow, the Hood, Black Canary, and Spartan. Spartan has his new costume. Now, in the set, in like the pictures of this, I didn't know that the helmet would be glowing green. I think that adds so much to his costume, as I did think it was better than any of the Spartan costumes had so far. However, it isn't exactly an amazing costume, although on screen, I do think it looks really cool. He has this new green costume, complete with a green glow in the mask, which is 100% a hint towards Green Lantern. It might be that he dressed in green because he wants to, or he used to be the Green Arrow and he teams up with the Green Arrow and the color green just makes sense, or maybe it's a tribute to the Green Lantern, which makes the most sense because of the fact of all of the references and hints towards him becoming Green Lantern, but also the green glow. Green Lanterns have a green glow in their costumes or in their whole body. When they're wearing a ring or when they're in costumes, they glow green, so this is definitely a reference to that, and that was really cool when that happened. After that, we get a fight scene between Team Arrow and Merlin's men, which again, very well choreographed, pretty intense, and a great fight scene overall, which leads to a one-on-one between Tommy Merlin and Oliver Queen. Right before that, there's also a very short fight between Green Arrow and Dinah and Renee, as Green Arrow beats them in like 3 seconds, even less than that, as they are not exactly trained vigilantes like they are on Earth 1. But then there's the fight between the Green Arrow and the Dark Archer, which is a very similar fight to the finale fight in Season 1, which is all the more better, as there's like a copy-paste moment. Oliver shoots Merlin with this explosion arrow. Merlin catches it, expecting it to not blow up, but then it does, and it's shot in the exact same way. Oliver wins this pretty awesome fight and then convinces Tommy to stop the earthquake machine in a pretty cool speech. I do think Tommy was convinced fairly easily to turn off the device, and although it wouldn't really mean anything, the device could have turned off. I don't really know. I think Tommy was maybe convinced a little bit too easily, but it's fine. Don't really mind it at all, and the speech that Oliver gave was a pretty good one. Then they go back to the bunker. Adrian Chase mentions Bruce Wayne, realizing that Oliver is from another Earth. This is pretty cool because this means that Bruce Wayne was Batman in more than 2 universes. On Earth 1, he's Batman. On Earth 38, he's Batman, and considering the Arrow knows, or the Hood knows Bruce Wayne, and there was the mask on Lian Yu, he was probably Bruce Wayne on Earth 2, or he was probably Batman on Earth 2 as well. So that's 3 universes where Bruce Wayne was Batman, so that was pretty cool. However, Batman on Earth 2, with the rest of it, doesn't really exist anymore, which is something that I will talk about extensively near the end of this review. But then Oliver talks to Merlin, which is a pretty good scene, but then says goodbye to Moira, also a very emotional scene, and then the crazy end of the episode twist actually happens. This was insane. So Oliver and Diggle are leaving Starling City, also leaving Earth 2, and Laurel shows up just in the nick of time as she says that Starling City is under attack, but then I think this is a separate attack as Starling City just begins to crumble around them along with the rest of Earth 2. This was the most unexpected twist I have ever seen in an episode. That might be hyperbole, but I do think that that is the case, or it might be, as this is something that I did not see coming at all. I did not expect the crisis to begin so soon. Like, I expected it to begin maybe the episode before the crossover, maybe even in the first episode of the crossover, not 2 months before the crossover. There is no way I expected for Earth 2 to be the first casualty of the crisis, and for that to happen in the first episode of Arrow Season 8, making this twist, I think, really good. Not to mention that Earth 2, I thought, was one of the universes that was safe from being destroyed, as in the comics, Earth 2 was one of the 5 universes that was combined into the new Earth. Not to mention that out of all of the Arrowverse universes, Earth 2, out of all of the alternate Arrowverse universes, Earth 2 is one of the more established ones and focused on an entire season of the Arrowverse, meaning the Flash Season 2, and then also this episode. So I definitely expected this universe to survive and also combine into the new Earth. So this twist was even the more twisty, as I did not see coming. I did not see this coming. I thought the scene was also visually really cool. And why do you think that they focused on the characters being destroyed? Like, it was Moira, she came out of nowhere and then died, and then Tommy did the same thing. They didn't really need to do that same thing with Tommy. However, it doesn't really bother me that much, as this twist was great. Visually, the scene is amazing, and it was one of the coolest moments we've ever seen as Earth 2 was destroyed. Not to mention that this was actually teased in the last episode of The Flash that came out an hour before this one in this photo. Getting all that positivity out of the way, let's talk about the flash forwards, a concept that I think never should have existed and something that really, really ruined Season 7. It made it way worse than it could have been, and I do think it's detrimental to this season, and it will make it worse than it can be. I mean, a season without Felicity, a season that builds up the crisis, and a season that's a complete tribute and homage to Arrow, the first 7 seasons, really could have been something special, and I think it still could be. However, the flash forwards will make it so that it is impossible for this season to be as good as Seasons 1, 2, or 5, as the flash forwards are terrible. In this episode, they're not exactly terrible. However, literally every single time they cut away from the present day to go to the flash forwards, my mind just shut off, and I really couldn't care less. I lost interest completely, and the fight scenes are good, the way they shot it is good, and a lot of it is good. However, I could not care less about this time or these characters in the slightest. There's future Team Arrow at a party. Mia unknowingly mutes John Diggle Jr., and then the Deathstrokes attack the party. Mia has a hard time following Connor's lead, a storyline that I didn't love, and then discount Green Arrow goes up against the poor man's Deathstroke in a whatever fight scene, and then in the end, Mia basically becomes the leader of the future Team Arrow, all of which I could not care less about. So the flash forwards are bad in this episode. They're always bad, and they're the only bad thing about this episode, is literally everything else is really, really good. Great fight scenes, great homages, a lot of great emotional moments, and an insane opening scene, and an incredible twist at the end, making this quite possibly, in spite of the flash forwards, quite possibly the best season premiere the Arrowverse has ever had, and I'll give it a 9.6